Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. Today's episode is Charmed Season 1, Episode 20, The Power of Two. The episode in a nutshell is just a brief reminder of what happened within this episode. So in this episode, we have Piper going to a convention for her workplace in Honolulu, and as a result of that, she is leaving Phoebe and Prue alone for kind of the first time, and she kind of worries that they're going to be fighting at each other's throats, and they assure her that nothing's going to go wrong while she's gone, encouraging her to go on her trip when she seems to be questioning whether she should or not. However, as it is for work, she does end up having to go on this trip, and this leaves Prue and Phoebe on their own. Prue basically gives Phoebe a list of chores that she needs to complete, and Piper adds on to it as well because she is going on vacation, so she has some things that she asks Phoebe to take care of while she's gone. And Phoebe agrees, but then she gets a call from her friend Mary Ann and remembers that she had actually originally made plans to go on a tour of Alcatraz with Mary Ann a while ago that she had forgotten about, and she decides to prioritize that trip over the chore list as she feels that she is being taken advantage of or taken for granted because she doesn't have a regular job, and does go to the tour. While she's on the tour, Jackson Ward, who was a serial killer that was executed on the island, is haunting it and needs a body in order to be able to cross water, which is why he's still at the prison instead of enacting the revenge he wants. But because it has been 36 years, he has become a poltergeist and able to influence the world. With him in the cell is also Charon, who is not really explained throughout the episode much. And she could take his soul, but she actually is after a witch's soul, and so that is why she instead helps him by killing the guard. And Phoebe witnesses this. Jackson then kind of hitches a ride on the corpse across the water, and once he's across the water as a poltergeist, he starts to kill either those who are responsible for his conviction and execution or their descendants because the person who was responsible has already passed on. And this then leaves Phoebe and Prue to basically figure out how to kill a ghost, which they find out that only a ghost is able to kill another ghost, which means that one of them will have to temporarily die so that their spirit can then say the spell that will vanquish Jackson's soul before he can continue his murders. And it is Prue who decides to take the potion that will temporarily kill her. However, CPR will revive her, but it has to be done within 4 minutes to avoid brain damage. Unfortunately, in the battle between her and Jackson, Phoebe ends up knocked out and is unable to revive her. Luckily, Andy comes in at the last moment and does end up being able to revive her after she has vanquished Jackson's soul, which Charon then takes with her to wherever it is she goes, leading to a happy ending as far as that main plot is concerned. Obviously, on the side plot, we have Andy kind of as the star, the secondary star of the episode. As we know in the last episode, he fully found out about demons and the fact that the sisters were witches. And then when he is with Daryl, just sitting kind of in the bullpen of the police station, we then have one of the other inspectors come over and say, "Hey, you guys have a reputation for the freaky cases. Here is a fluorescent fingerprint found on a recent murder victim or murder weapon, and it matches a dead serial killer. How about that?" And Andy, now knowing the truth about the supernatural being real, goes to Prue and Phoebe asking their opinion, which is where he finds out about the ghost, which of course becomes a little overwhelming because it's like demons, witches, and now we're adding on ghosts as well. And obviously that wasn't something that he was expecting. And then, he kind of works with Prue and Phoebe on their quest to kill the ghost. He also ends up kind of doing what Prue had always done to him, where Daryl shows some concern for Andy as his partner, being like, I can tell something's up, what's going on, confide in me, we're partners, we work together. And Andy is basically trying to evade the truth without actually lying outright to him. And then it is revealed, Daryl gives the tip that the Internal Affairs Department has decided to investigate them because of all of their unsolved cases, and in particular, they are investigating Andy. And this, of course, leads to some tension and subplot, and Andy is basically held up on rejoining the sisters by their questioning. Once he gets free from that, he then goes to the manor, and that is where he finds Prue unconscious, dead, and starts to try to revive her. After everything is said and done, he then states basically he found out about the truth spell. He was a bit upset about it, but by the end of the episode, he realizes that it doesn't matter if he had a day, a month, a year, however long he had. The truth is that he envisions for himself kind of a white picket fence life, and that does not include witches, demons, ghosts, etc. And even though the breakup was already official, it just re-cements that there is no hope for a future between Prue and Andy. And then we have Prue and Phoebe gaining a new appreciation for each other by working together on this ghost case, if you will, and they then have re-strengthened their relationship. So when Piper comes home, she comes home a little bit early because she had a feeling they'd be at each other's throats, and they of course say that of course not, they got along great. She asks them if anything happened, and they both say that nothing happened at all. We as the audience know better, but overall it's a happy end to the episode. Now that we've rewatched the episode, we can now rank the episode on our two ranking lists. First list is our mostly objective ranking, and then the second list is the personal ranking. So for our mostly objective rank values, I've highlighted those that I felt applied to this episode. First off, we have our single episode supporting characters, which is Charon and Jackson Ward, and that's 1 point each. We then have our multi-episode supporting character introductions, and this is the Inspectors Rodriguez and the Inspector Anderson. And they are the inspectors that are from Internal Affairs that have started to investigate Daryl and mostly Andy within this episode, and that is worth 2 points each. We then have our multi-episode supporting character development, which is of course where we learn that Andy and Daryl have a reputation for the freaky cases, as they are called, and one of the other inspectors brings them the ghost fingerprint, which is found on the murder weapon, matching Jackson Ward's fingerprint, and asks for their opinion on it, which Andy then, as I said in the summary, goes to Prue with. Oh wow, I'm having trouble speaking today. We then also have Andy learning about the truth spell, and that really he was only given about a minute to react, which at first, in the beginning of the episode, does upset him. However, as I had mentioned before, by the end, not so much. But he also learns that that truth spell is what eventually sealed it for Prue to officially and completely cut off the relationship, which he feels was a little unfair. But again, by the end of the episode, we find out that's not the case. We then have Daryl, who is questioned first by the Internal Affairs, warning Andy that he is under investigation by the Internal Affairs. And then Andy, of course, evading Daryl's concerns. So a lot of development with Andy in this episode, which is interesting as a choice because because we are rewatchers, spoiler alert, Andy doesn't live out the season. And so, for us so late in the season to be getting so much development of the character, you can definitely tell that they are setting up, knowing the future as we do, that they are setting up for us to be emotionally impacted by that event, which of course I will discuss more in detail in the episode that it actually occurs in. But ultimately, we're getting a lot of development on Andy, and he is very much a secondary character throughout this episode. Oh my goodness. All right, and that was that was +2 as well. Now we're into the big positives. We have a multi-season main character growth. In the last episode, Prue's powers grew. In this episode, it's Phoebe's powers that are growing. Phoebe has been practicing and meditating on trying to call a premonition on demand, and she does succeed in the beginning of the episode by having a vision on Piper's plane ticket of her unfortunately missing her flight. And then later she's also able to call a premonition on the murder weapon, and that premonition is more intense than any of the premonitions she's had before. Normally she just sees the event, but in this case she was able to feel the pain and terror of the victim within the premonition, showing that it was stronger and that they once again have grown, and that is of course worth 4 points. And then lastly we have the world building aspect, which is to do with the ghosts. We find out that only a ghost can kill a ghost. There's no spells that the living can cast to impact them. We also learn that some spirits, or that a spirit, any spirit really, in order to cross a body of water, has to do so within a corpse by hitching a ride. They can't do so on their own, which is why this ghost was trapped on Alcatraz, which was an island, for so long, unable to seek his revenge. And those are worth 4 points. Which then brings us on the positive side all the way up to 16. But there were some negatives. The first negative of the episode is, of course, the supporting relationship regression or breakup. Now, obviously, they have already broken up. That has been official. However, they still had given the audience some hope. For example, in the Wendigo episode, Andy was told the truth about the Wendigo, that what he saw was real, and Phoebe had made the comment that maybe he wouldn't have actually be as upset by learning the truth as they had initially thought in The Truth Is Out There and It Hurts. And Prue also kind of agrees that maybe there's hope. And they do still get along, they are still friends, and they have a positive relationship. So as the audience, especially when it first came out and you didn't know the fate of Andy, you might have had some sort of hope that maybe they'll get back together. That was kind of hinted at and put in there a couple of times, just a little bit. But now we get the full regression of it's never going to happen. He's fully aware of the truth. He's had time to process it, which he didn't get in The Truth Is Out There and It Hurts. He's had the time to really consider things, and ultimately he has decided that no matter how much time he was given, what he wants from his life is a normal white picket fence, wife and kids, no drama, no demons, no ghosts, none of that, just somewhere he can go home to, relax, and so on and so forth. So basically, this is the end of all hope. They're never getting back together. There's no reason to expect it, and that is why I'm counting it as a regression, which is of course -2 points. Then we have our weak main plot concept. This is to do with the ghost. Honestly, it just felt very like an afterthought. Even though it's technically like the main bad guy of the episode, main villain that they're defeating this episode, there was so much drama going on with Andy. There was so much attention put towards the sisters' relationship and learning how to appreciate each other, as they're usually the ones that are the ones butting heads, Prue and Phoebe. And the internal affairs coming in, Andy wrestling with everything, that it felt like the ghost was kind of just, like I said, an afterthought. Not really that. Even like Charon as well, an afterthought. As a result of that, it wasn't very engaging as a main plot, and so that is worth a -4 points. And then the last one is that weak or dislikable supporting character. And in this case, it's not that they were dislikable, it was simply that it was a weak character. There was no real thought put into them, no real explanation, and I'm talking about Sharon. Sharon, they were not developed at all. In fact, maybe it was mentioned, but it was mentioned in such a gloss over way that I don't recall, even though I just finished the episode, of who exactly Sharon is. All I know about her is essentially that she is not a ghost, but she is alongside the ghost, and she is after souls. And instead of taking the serial killer's soul, she's using him to try to get a witch's soul. And at the end of the episode, she is not vanquished. Once they defeat Jackson Ward, she takes his soul. She tells Prue that, oh, I was hoping to get yours or your sister's soul, but I'll just settle for his, and then she's gone. And it's like, who is she? She never recurs. We don't really learn much about her. She takes the soul, she's after their souls, then she takes that soul, she's not vanquished. Who was she? Was she one of the neutral entities? Was she an evil entity? We aren't really told anything about her. And if she was a recurring character and they were saving that development for a different episode, that would be different. However, that is not the case. This is the only episode she appears in. So it's a weak character because no thought was put into it and no development was put into it. They really didn't even need, like, it seems like the only reason they had that character was basically a sounding board for Jackson and somebody to kill the guard so that Jackson could hop a ride in his body. Like, other than that, she played no role. It was pointless. And so that is also a -4, which then brings this episode overall in the mostly objective rank values to a 6 out of 10. So as a reminder of our season 1 rankings so far in our mostly objective list, in first place we have Something Wicked This Way Comes, I've Got You Under My Skin, From Fear to Eternity, Is There a Woogie in the House, That 70s Episode, Wicked Envy, Secrets and Guys, When Bad Warlocks Turn Good, Out of Sight, Dead Man Dating, Feats of Clay, Dream Sorcerer, The Witch is Back, this episode is 14th with The Power of Two, Thank You for Not Morphing, Which Proves It Anyway. And then we have The Truth Is Out There and It Hurts, The Wendigo, The Wedding from Hell, and then in 20th place, The Fourth Sister. All right, so now for my personal ranking. I don't have as much to say on this episode. I did enjoy that we got a little bit more interaction between Phoebe and Prue and their dynamic while they're left alone, as well as the resolution of Phoebe feeling like she was taken advantage of, or rather taken for granted, and Prue kind of being angry at her that, she doesn't work, even though she does help out around the house, being somewhat resentful that she doesn't have a job. However, by the end of the episode, we have Prue acknowledging that Phoebe really takes the lead on a lot of the research of the Wiccan side of things, and she obviously does help a lot around the house, and she does want to get a job. However, she doesn't have one yet, and Prue kind of comments that when the time is right, she will get a job, and she apologizes for taking her for granted. And of course, Phoebe also kind of apologizes for Prue for not, doing what was on the list and whatnot, and understanding, like that she does work and is stressed out from that, so on and so forth. They also kind of reappreciate Piper because she is usually the swing vote and voice of reason, and with majority rules, if it's only two of them, there can't necessarily be a majority unless they both agree. So they kind of start to appreciate Piper, who is absent. Now, obviously, Piper is my favorite of all of the sisters, and as a result of that, when she is not in an episode, and she does miss out on a few of them in the future as well, it is a little bit like, I don't know if I like this as much because my favorite's gone, even though I do like the other sisters too. Like, I like all of the main characters, don't get me wrong, but she's my favorite. So when she's missing, I'm like, this isn't as enjoyable as it otherwise could have been. She was like only in like brief little snippets, the opening of the episode, one brief phone call during the episode, and then she returns right at the end of the episode, so very much missing. I have mentioned before, not for a while, but I have mentioned before that I am a sufferer of secondhand embarrassment when characters do things that I would deem very embarrassing, I feel the embarrassment that they should be feeling and usually don't. But when Phoebe was at Alcatraz and obviously Sharon killed one of the guards, we then have, the ghost there and she runs up to the cage and she's like banging on the cage and like yelling at these things, and obviously she's the only one who can see them, so everyone's looking at her like a weirdo and she looks like a weirdo, and I'm just like, how embarrassing would that be? And obviously she's not embarrassed, but I, as the audience member, as a sufferer of secondhand embarrassment, I am horrified, I am embarrassed, and I do not like that kind of emotion. I don't like being embarrassed, and I don't like feeling embarrassment, and I definitely did secondhand, did not enjoy that. It's a negative for me. It may have been there for like comedy's sake, but I didn't find it funny. I found it embarrassing. And then I do have to highlight that even though Andy and Prue are once again officially never getting back together, we do, of course, still have in this episode that he saves her life, which is when he revives her because Phoebe was passed out and unable to do it. And then we also have him saving her job. Claire basically is like, there's buyers for the auction house. We are selling it and we need you to make a good impression on the investors because you are the main reason that we have saved it, but you have a lot of unexplained absences and a lot of family dramas and emergencies that you're constantly leaving for. I need to see a more commitment from you. Prue, of course, then is off on the ghost hunt most of the episode, and Claire decides that she is going to be fired. However, just as she is in the process of being fired, Andy comes in, pretends, of course, that Prue is helping him on a sting operation for artifacts and artworks, and obviously, therefore, was missing work validly, and Claire, now finding that out, even though it is a lie, decides that Prue can keep her job, which ends happily for Prue. So even though their relationship is now rockier, it is at least that he is still going to be there for her as a friend, and I'm sure he understands what she does is to the benefit of society as a whole. But ultimately, like I said, main plot was lacking. My favorite character was missing. For most of it, it was more so about the drama than the main plot. And though the drama was interesting, again, it focused on Andy, who we know doesn't have staying power, unfortunately. So overall, I gave it a 4 out of 10. Which then brings our season 1 ranking so far on the personal ranking to, in first place, Is There a Woogie in the House? Second, Dead Man Dating, The Witch is Back, From Fear to Eternity, That 70s Episode, Wicca Envy, The Truth is Out There and It Hurts, Something Wicca This Way Comes. Ninth is Dream Sorcerer, Out of Sight, Feats of Clay, Thank You for Not Morphing, which proves it anyway. Secrets and Guys, this episode is in 15th with The Power of Two. I've Got You Under My Skin. We then have The Wendigo at 17, When Bad Warlocks Turn Good, The Wedding from Hell, and then in 20th place, The Fourth Sister. Which brings us now to our final section of the video, which is the series ranking so far. On the series ranking, we of course are ranking each of the seasons against each other, and we're discovering the total score for the season based on the numbers that we rank each episode. So with the addition of 6 for our mostly objective ranking, we now have 141 out of 220, which is the maximum score that was possible, with 10 being the highest each episode could potentially score, and there being 22 episodes within the season. And then on our personal ranking, we are adding 4 for a total of 126 out of 220. And with that, we've now rewatched and ranked Charmed Season 1, Episode 20, The Power of Two. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.